Hello, my name is Stuart Province. My presentation is called Leisure, a Key Component to Active Aging. My topic is on leisure amongst older adults and the impacts and benefits that leisure can have on the older adults and the impacts it has on their aging process. So the roots of active aging can be dated back to the early 1940s, um, when sociogerontologists stressed the importance of an active lifestyle in old age. Um, at the time when this came out, it was um, it was criticized because it was criticized as being overly idealistic for emphasizing the importance of older adult activity. Um, and then later in 1961, a theory on the aging process by two social scientists, Elaine Cumming and William Henry. That theory focused on disengagement amongst older adults. This was the disengagement theory, and they believed that there was a mutual withdrawal between aging persons and society. They believed that disengagement amongst older adults was both universal and inevitable, um, which then led to this disengagement theory to be even more heavily criticized by researchers and reports of older adults who were actively engaged. Um, so at this time, there weren't a lot of research studies done on older adults, so there was not a lot of information to go off of. And this bled into society in the 1970s and 1980s. There were multiple European countries starting to push public policies that encourage and incentivized early retirement from the labor force by older adults, kind of believing that the disengagement and the aging was universal and that it was bound to happen. Um, they started trying to push or curve them out of the work and labor force, so that they could bring youth and youth unemployment up at the time. Um, these practices also got adopted in the United States in the 80s, when they began offering substantial early retirement incentives. And at this time, all this led to the idea of three strict successive aging phases. The first one being learning, the second one being working, and the final one being resting, which can be characterized as dependency, decline, and loss. So this led to society's belief that older adults that they need to start to remove themselves and withdraw from society because they are aging, which is very dangerous. And then in the 2000s, the World Health Organization developed their own active aging model. It was defined as they defined active aging as the process of optimizing opportunities for health, participation, and security in order to enhance quality of life as people age. Their model contained or emphasized four key pillars: health, participation, security, and lifelong learning. This was more well received because it fared better, because it showed that there were other factors into aging besides just growing old and losing function, losing ability. It took into account factors such as ethnicity, gender, social status, financial stability, physical and mental ability. Um, and yeah, so we do have possible solutions to active or to um, help active aging, is leisure. So some studies on leisure and aging. The first one is called A Lot Better Than Medicine, Self-Organized Ocean Swimming Groups as Facilitators for Healthy Aging. This was a research done at Edith Cowan University in Australia. They studied the benefits of older adults participating in swimming groups. They found that, or the participants in this were ranging from ages 55 and up, with certain participants being even over the ages of 80. The findings in this study said that, or they found that by regular swimming practice, it helped them maintain healthy weight and blood pressure, maintain or improve their fitness and general health, minimize or avoid the need for medication, and assist with health issues and adverse life events. Adverse life events, like for example, one of the participants was overcoming the loss of her husband, and she stated that she believed that the swimming practice in the swimming group was a lot better than medicine. And then they also found that the feeling of group membership and social connectedness was present in the post-swimming kind of hangouts. They found that even after the swimming, after the benefits of that, they were able to connect with each other and be social with one another. The second study is psychological benefits of attending the theater associated with positive effect and well-being for subscribers over age 60. This was done at the University of Louisville. It examined the experiences of older adults' attendance at theater performances and the effects that it had on them. So the participants were people over the age of 60 who had subscriptions to the theater. So they were selected to volunteer and fill out questionnaires. In the study, they found that social engagement, sense of belonging, and flow were distinctly associated with the participants' reports of positive effect following the theater performances. And this study was done over the course of 2 years of attending theater performances. So the reports were also able to find that there was an overall change in positive overall change in their well-being from when the study started to when it finished 2 years later. It is important to mention, though, that the participants were people who already had an interest in theater, having been subscribers. So it's not that theater is what benefits older adults. It's that using leisure time to participate in something that you have an interest in and a connection with is what's beneficial. And then the last study is sustainable aging and leisure behaviors. Do leisure activities matter in aging well? This was a study done in Korea where they interviewed older adult citizens and they asked them about their perceptions of leisure and aging, as well as their leisure behavior at senior centers. And what they found 4 main themes amongst the older adults' perceptions of leisure. There was an unfamiliarity with the concept of leisure and leisure engagement. There was the evolving perceptions of Korean Senior Center and leisure benefits, limited physical function as a major leisure constraint, and major factors for successful aging in Korean older adults. So they found that when they were often asking the older Korean adults about leisure, they often were confused and would say leisure, what's leisure? And that would cause them to have to explain what leisure was. And then they also found that most participants were initially reluctant to be involved at senior centers. A lot of their initial perceptions were that senior centers were a place for people who were poor, did not live with their family, or were otherwise very disadvantaged. Obviously that's not what senior centers are for. And then that perception of senior centers eventually evolved over time as they, reported to senior centers and saw that the benefits that it has on aging. And so in conclusion, there was an understanding that an active lifestyle with social engagement through meaningful leisure activities is a major factor for sustainable aging. And then so when we're analyzing leisure and aging, it's important to mention that especially in the early stages, ageism and misconceptions about older adults greatly affected older adults and their aging process. We saw that a lot in the workforce with them kind of getting pushed out the door and almost forced into retirement. And then it also damages them because it creates these misconceptions about what older adults need, what services they should be provided. So if they believe that older adults become more disengaged as they're as they age, then that leads to people not believing that leisure activities and programs are important for them because they assume that they're not mobile, they're not they're not looking to engage in that way. And so we saw one problem was in the 1900s, there were not a lot of studies on active aging. This led to a lot of confusion on the subject. And, kind of, we saw that in the Korean study where they had older adults, even they were confused on the subject of leisure. They were confused on the conceptions of senior centers. They believed that they weren't just for all older adults. They believed that they were more for like a specific demographic of older adults. So it's important to continue these studies and to have more studies on the subject so that we can have a better understanding of older adults and of the aging processes. And it's also important to note that when doing these studies, a lot of the participants in the more physical demanding leisure activities, such as the open swimming groups, those only represent participants who age successfully and they remain healthy enough to engage in these leisure activities. So it's important to also remember that there are older adults who are unable to engage in those activities. So we need to find other alternatives for them and not forget them when we're learning about the aging process and discussing it. The theoretical framework I decided to use for my topic is the continuity theory on aging. It's defined as a psychological theory of aging, which posits that as middle-aged and elderly adults adapt to changes associated with the normal aging process, their past experiences, decisions, and behaviors will form the foundation for their present and future decisions and behavior. So in leisure terms, this would represent that what leisure activities you enjoyed in your younger childhood or young adulthood, you would then have that interest again in the later stages of your life when you're older, when you're retired and you have more leisure time and looking to partake in leisure. So a good example was from week 9 in our class. We read an article called Leisure as a Resource for Successful Aging by Older Adults with Chronic Health Conditions, where they were doing a study on older adults' leisure participation. And in the study, we heard from an older adult by the name of Jack. He had an interest in woodworking from a very young age. And so upon retirement, him and his wife, they then started using their leisure time building doll houses for their neighborhood, for their neighbors, and for community groups. It's the continuity theory of aging. Also helps in leisure because it brings a sense of familiarity and a sense of comfort to older adults. From my personal experience working at a senior center, when older adults come into the senior center, they're a little not confused, but they're unsure on what to participate in, what's available, what's there to do. So it's always nice to give them ideas of stuff that they're familiar with and opportunities that they would feel comfortable doing. And so our role in active aging amongst older adults as recreation professionals. So since we can provide programs, opportunities to them, it's our role to work with them to find the best ways to help them and assist them as they age, so that they're successfully aging, as opposed to seeing lots of decline in from disengagement, from isolation, from depression, kind of bringing them together at senior centers, at senior programs, senior events, allowing them to continue with that social connectedness and social participation that they are missing due to not working anymore, not having as many friends. They can use our leisure services to fill those gaps. And this is an important topic because as we enter the 21st century, we've seen life longevity grow, and we see the expectations that older adult population is only going to be growing, and that old of 75 plus is also growing as we are able to prolong life. So this trend, or this issue and topic, is important to emphasize and to continue studying as we see life expectancy and see older adult population rise. And that's my presentation. Thank you.